about it, and he has a pregnant girlfriend.
Yes,
and
he
can't seem to make a decision.
Yes, that's it. And so symbolically, he's on this journey that he doesn't understand where he's going or why.
Mm-hmm.
But also literally in the film, he's kind of moving from place to place. And I don't know if you remember how that film ends.
He gets on the truck.
Yes,
apparently.
I mean, again, to me,
Abandons the girl
it's a classic road movie ending, where the road continues. You know, he's with his girlfriend, and he says, I'm going to go to the bathroom or something, or she goes to the bathroom, and he gets out of his car, and he walks over to this truck, and he gets in and goes in the opposite direction that he was traveling with her, and we don't know where he's going, we don't know why he's going. He doesn't say anything to her.
So the movie ends with a big question mark.
Yes, the movie ends with the ambiguity that was structuring it throughout.
The Sugarland Express, though, deals on a more ends on a more positive note.
Yeah. Well, the Sugarland Express is Spielberg.
Right.
You know, and Spielberg is more of a classical Hollywood director, even though his first couple of films were road movies, Duel and the Sugarland Express. And I focus on the Sugarland Express. Again, not that well known of a film, but a classic, outlaw road movie very much in this tradition of Bonnie and Clyde, but he reverses a lot of things. He changes some things around. Go ahead.
The two protagonists want to get back with their foster child, right?
Yes.
So it harkens back to conservative
yes.
values, family.
That's right. They want to get back to their child. They want to start a family. They befriend the policeman who rides with them. I mean, that's sort of a big no-no in the classic rebellious road movie, and yet none other, who else but Steven Spielberg is going to reinscribe the law and the family inside of the couple, inside of the car, and kind of prepare for the Reagan era, and prepare for a conservative swing in the 1980s road movies.
And that takes us to the 80s, of course, where you argue that it becomes postmodern, or postmodernism. And the road movie seems to somewhat go off the track, as it were. It becomes somewhat unglued with heavy doses of sex, irony, violence, simplistic comedy, without much of a real message. But there are some films, though, that you do take note of, and that is, one is Paris, Texas.
Yes.
With Harry Dean Stanton.
Yes.
And I can't think of the other.
Dean Stockwell.
Dean Stockwell.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an important film, and that is by the German director Wim Wenders, who I mentioned earlier, who I think that was the first road movie he made in America, possibly his first American film. This is 1984. That film represents a whole spate of road movies that are made by American independent directors, like Jim Jarmusch and Gus Van Sant and David Lynch, who continue the tradition of the road movie as an independent genre of rebellion. But as you mentioned, I think the road movie starts to change, and it, I think, in interesting ways reflects the 1980s, the whole Reagan-Thatcher period, the emphasis on mass media, on accelerated and intensified consumerism.
Science fiction elements with Mad Max.
There you go. I mean, the science fiction.
The patriarchal hero.
Exactly. You have sort of, in popular Hollywood films, you have the return of the patriarchal hero, you have the sort of advent of highly popular science fiction action
Back
blockbusters.
to the Future.
Yes. Yes.
You see that Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, in the first part of the film with his parents. He lives in a Levittown, like from the 50s.
Yes.
And then, he wants to go back, and then after everything occurs in the film, the family is on happier terms. And
right.
And
And he uses a car.
Exactly.
But the car isn't a car, really. I mean, it's a
time travel.
It's a time travel machine. So I mean, the car has been, appropriated by this sort of science fiction fantasy approach, and used to time travel back into the past, which is interesting, and sort of fix the family of the present by remasculinizing the Crispin Glover father character, turning him into a a hard body, a tough guy. Which,
and a successful author.
yes, right, an
Of science
entrepreneur.
fiction
Yes, an
novels.
entrepreneur, right. So I mean, it fits in very well, even though Back to
That's
the
right.
Future is not a road movie per se. It is highly symbolic that they use an automobile in that particular way, in a very un-road movie way, where it doesn't go anywhere in terms of the landscape, but is a vehicle for fantasy and for regression.
I see.
But there are a lot of road movies from the 80s by independent directors that do try to carry on this tradition of exploring America, critiquing America, but you do get a lot more special effects. You get a lot more violence. The decade ends with David Lynch's Wild at Heart, which...
But that brings us into the 90s.
Yeah,
of course.
really, that film does kind of start. It came out in '89, but it's more of a '90s film. It's kind of
Why
ultra-violent.
is that film sort of so significant, Wild at Heart, as a precursor of the 90s?
Well, yeah, I mean,
theme?
I think it is because, first of all, it very self-consciously takes the outlaw road movie couple of Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern and parodies that, pushes that outlaw narrative of the road movie to an extreme. In terms of the violence, in terms of the traveling
imagery.
shots, in terms of the imagery, the cinematography, where they go, traveling through the South, the way that the family and the mob are, chasing them, and it's really over the top. It's very, postmodern, and it's high, MTV stylization.
Exactly.
It's tongue in cheek. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's poking fun at itself throughout. And that in itself, I think, is kind of reflective of 1980s popular culture. But also, I think it's highly significant that, like the Sugarland Express, which maybe is the starting point of that kind of film in 1974, and then when we get to 1989, Wild at Heart also has the outlaw road movie couple, settling down and starting a family in the suburbs. That's what they want to do, and that's what they end up doing. And it inscribes this whole Wizard of Oz fantasy. And the Wizard of Oz is another, people talk about it as a road movie, but it's extremely wholesome and cartoon-like, and I think road movies become more wholesome and cartoon-like
Exactly.
in the 80s and 90s.
And you see in Wild at Heart specifically, Diane Ladd, the mother of Peanut, Laura Dern,
Yes.
determined to break up their relationship, Sailor and Peanut, Nicolas Cage
Right.
and Laura Dern. But they are sort of destined to stay together,
Yes.
even though Sailor finds himself in prison again. It's almost as if the
Right.
film takes a rather circular path.
Yes.
But she returns with a 6-year-old son or something like that. Or
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
at the end
right.
of the
So
movie.
they're going to start their family,
Right.
despite the antagonism
Machinations
of the mother. Yeah, I mean, the gangsters are chasing them. They're not really gangsters. They're like
Right.
innocent victims.
Right.
Which again is a kind of a reversal, because usually the gangsters are the ones who are on the road. Here in Wild at Heart, it's not the case. Also, I mean, the film has really, to my mind, no political or social edge to it. It's just kind of in this cartoon-like vacuum that isn't interested in criticizing society. So that's opening up a new door for the road movie.
I think most people remember Nicolas Cage's snakeskin jacket,
Right.
and him belting Elvis tunes.
Yeah, that's right. Imitating Elvis.
Right.
And so you get, a few years later, Forrest Gump, where
Exactly.
the ghost of Elvis, appears to him, and it's
Yeah.
kind of it's cheesy and wholesome and cute and elusive, but it's doing something else than what the independent rebellion road movie
I see.
has done and still does.
The 90s, you talk about in your book, presents a rebellious countercultural atmosphere for women, gays,
Yes.
people of color.
Yes.
So it really takes a whole different perspective
Yeah.
on the road movie in many respects.
Yes, I mean, I think that a lot of this conservative, cartoon-like, wholesome quality continues in the 90s with a lot of road movie comedies. But you do get a what I see as a kind of reinvigoration of this tradition of rebellion and social critique.